Hi guys, welcome to today's video. I'm so excited to talk about it because I didn't originally anticipate this. By the title, you'll see what I'm talking about. It is why we are choosing homeschooling, and I'm going to go through all of our reasons. But before I do that, I wanted to do kind of like a little disclaimer. I am not trying to shame anyone from public schooling or private schooling, secular or like Christian schools, anything like that. I am just stating the reasons why we're homeschooling and why it's going to work for us, or we're going to try to make it work. So I want to go through all of the reasons, and when you guys are listening to my reasons, I want you guys to not feel bad if you're choosing not to homeschool when you listen to these reasons, but this is just my why. This is why my heart is choosing this for our family. So, and I understand that not everyone is in a position where they can homeschool, and I know that not everyone is willing or capable to homeschool, and I say that with love. Like, I don't say that with any kind of judgment or anything like that. But I am passionate about this subject. I have done so much research over the last year and a half, I would say, about different like curriculums and different educational styles. You know, children learn in different ways, different styles, and there are so many different educational philosophies that kind of tailor to different styles and beliefs. So I definitely have an eclectic homeschool view when it comes to educating my kids. And I will talk about curriculum and education styles and all of that in an upcoming video. I just want to go through kind of why we are homeschooling. So this is in no particular order. This is just kind of how I wrote it out on my heart, in my head, when I was just wanting to put it down, because I had all of these feelings inside about why, but I never actually written it down and counted how many reasons I had. So this is in no particular order. Number one is healthier kids. So under this category, I have more sleep, so I don't have to wake them up in the mornings. They can naturally wake up when they want to. Healthier home meals, so I can make from scratch all their meals. There's no peer influence to eat junk or what the average kid eats, because we do not eat like the average family. Yes, we have like cheat days or like days where we're kind of less healthy, but overall we do make our meals from scratch, organic, less processing as possible, so whole foods, mostly plant-based. So I can just, you know, ensure that that remains the case. We won't have to fight against pizza days or like it's a kid's birthday, so everyone's having donuts that day, that kind of thing. So call me strict, call me crazy for that, but I do believe in setting a foundation when they're young to eat healthy, so that continues on for the rest of their life. Less germs. Obviously kids are gross in schools, like kids are constantly getting sick. That also goes hand in hand with how much time they spend outdoors. The more time they spend outdoors, the healthier they are. There is the nature deficit disorder, which I heard there's actually a term for, if you guys want to look that up, but they don't spend enough time outside in schools. And hygiene habits are better monitored and consistent, so like hand washing and brushing their teeth after meals, that sort of thing. So it's a lot easier when you're constantly with your kid to instill those values versus setting them off at kindergarten and then they never wash their hands and have gross things on their hands while they're eating, and call me OCD or whatever, but that's important to me. So number two is family life. So more time with my kids. I love spending time with my kids. I don't like being away from my kids. I never get away from my kids. I think I've had like one like full mom day out since having kids. So, but overall I prefer it that way. Stronger sibling bonds is another reason under family life. So they're spending time with each other versus going out of the home and creating relationships on a full-time basis with other people outside the family. Household responsibilities and contributions, so they see every aspect all day long, how the family and household runs, and then they can contribute. So they're making their beds in the mornings versus if you're going off to school, there's like no time. Like you're literally wake up your kids, they eat, they leave. You know, they can just, you know, be part of a lot more things in the household. So spontaneous travel and field trips is a family life bonus. So we don't have to work around a school schedule at all. We can decide to do schooling on vacation if we decide to go to Italy for a month or whatever. So I love that flexibility. Mentorship between my kids, so leadership skills. So they're going to, like, the olders will teach the younger, and that's not like a dynamic that happens in school. You're in a class with your peers same age, so you're learning social skills and things from people who know pretty much the same thing you do, versus having someone older teaching you and then being the older kid and learning how to lead and teach younger siblings. So you have a more positive family outlook when you are homeschooled. You value your relationships with your family better. I know of homeschooled kids and adults who were homeschooled, and their relationships with their family are so close-knit, and I love that. So there's no like, oh, my mom's so like weird and embarrassing, and you know, I don't even know what my sister's into because we never see each other kind of thing. Doesn't happen in homeschooled families, from my knowledge anyways. And in terms of like other family life stuff, like I know what's best for them and I know them 100%, whereas a teacher may not know, you know, what's going on behind the scenes and maybe blaming something else or whatever. Like I know them best, I know what's best for them, and I know everything. So they can't like hide things or lie really in homeschool environment. Like, oh, I don't have any homework. Well, I'm your teacher. I know that we have this project to do or whatever. Education. So this is where it gets interesting, because the public education system, or just like school systems and like the mainstream ones, they're very much modeled from way back when, where we were teaching kids to be educated enough to be workers in factories and, you know, the Industrial Revolution and all of that. So our school system really hasn't changed the way we teach kids that much. It's still a classroom. You're still sitting at desk. You're still learning from a teacher, subjects. You're still being graded. You're still being tested on what you remember, versus fostering a love of learning. So that's a huge point under education that I want to make. Flexible curriculum is a huge interest of mine. I hear my baby crying, so I'm gonna wrap this up real quick. The curriculum levels and grades, so if one of my children are gifted in mathematics, I can advance them to the next level versus keeping them back. Or vice versa, if they are struggling with reading, they may be at a grade 1 level of readiness when it comes to reading, but everything else could be still grade 3 or 4, whatever grade they're in, but I can work with that. Whereas teachers don't have that flexibility. They would either fail you or move you on to the next grade. They have so many kids to take care of, they can't hold the hand of every single student. So, and I actually heard from a teacher that, you know, when there's such big classes, like 20 to 26, 30 kids, it's the ones that are having troubles or are acting out, or like the troublemakers, bullies, whatever, that get the most attention from the teacher, because they're trying to like correct them and guide them and help them. So the kids that are good kids, that are, you know, average grade or better, they don't get a lot of attention and guidance because they're fine, they're doing well. So that's a problem. So when you're homeschooling, you don't have to do grading because you know where your child stands for everything. You don't need a test to tell you that they know certain things and they don't know other things. So I like that there's no grading and no testing. So out of the box thinking, learning, problem solving, creativity, and kind of like rabbit hole or trail learning, I'm really interested in, because I see it already with my daughter who's 4 in November. So she, her and I will start talking about a subject, say for example, bald eagles, and we start learning about the bald eagle, and then she's like, well, what does bald mean? And then we got into learning about balding in animals and in humans and why that happens, why there's hair loss. And then we started learning about eagles and like what they eat, and then we started researching mice and then how they have like, you know, fur and hair and blah 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 blah. And it was just like on and on and on and on. And I'm fostering a love of learning and you know, following your little seeds of learning versus here's the information, read it, memorize it, because you'll be tested on it. So you're like being forced to learn that specific topic without really being fully engaged in it. So you're less likely to remember it or care about it, or, you know, it have an impact on your life in any way. So you can also tailor your education to the whole child versus just academics. So our homeschooling, includes like nature studies and, you know, learning about environmental impact, even at a young age. Like our decisions and what we do as humans on this planet have an impact in our communities, in our planet. And that is something that, you know, you can educate in homeschooling for your kids to be people of change and doing better for our world through what you teach them. So that's a big plus for me. There's no milestone pressures, like I mentioned about tailoring their curriculum. So you don't have to be like, oh, my kid's like 7 years old and they're not reading yet. Like that pressure there that is in school systems is not there when you're homeschooling. Or at least it shouldn't be, because there's no rush. Children should be children first. I truly believe in that. I mean, if your kids are gifted, great, just follow that passion and that ease of teaching them things. But if they're struggling, like, you support them and you have patience and they will get there. I truly believe that. Reduced waste of resources and time. So like homeschooling for 4-year-old takes about 15 minutes a day, like for academics. Like it's not this whole day. And like if you look at a kindergarten schedule, it's a lot of wasted time. And you can choose, like when you're homeschooling, your materials so you can be more eco-friendly and have less waste, because, you know, some of the projects that they do is like, well, you didn't really learn a skill, it's pretty pointless, it just goes into the garbage. Like, what are we actually trying to accomplish here? So I like that. I like that learning happens everywhere. I like that learning never stops. We homeschool like literally 24/7. We're constantly learning different things. And we can control what, when, where, how they learn. So if I have problems with the state curriculum suggestions, then I can do something different. Like I don't have to follow any kind of state or province recommendations. What else? Life skills I mentioned before. Anyone in the family can teach. So hubby can teach on Saturdays and Sundays. We don't have to follow a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 kind of school rule. We homeschool, like I said, 24/7. So my husband, when he's home from work, evenings, weekends, we do some school stuff. That includes like grandparents, friends, neighbors, people in the community. They can all contribute to your children's education. Growing up slowly, I mentioned already, and you can create more connections with the communities, which I want to drive point, because a lot of people say, oh, homeschool, like how about socialization and blah, 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 blah. So there is a huge misconception about homeschooling and socialization. and the fact that people think that you just stay in your house and you never leave and you don't have friendships and connections with the outside world. And there's nothing like further than the truth than that. So I want to drive a point that I can establish more connections with the community because we are not stuck in school between 8 and 3 or whatever the times are. We can be at the grocery center, at the library center, we can be at the grocery store, we can be at ballet and swim and do all of that within 8 to 3, and we are more connected and more socialized that way. Less technology is a point I want to make because I believe that kids are too dependent on technology and they use it too often, that their social skills are becoming quite scary. If you see a group of kids now, they're all on their phones and they're not even communicating with each other. So homeschooling allows you to do less technology and really control how often they're using it and how they're using it, to create more social kids, because right now there's a technology epidemic, I swear. But that's a whole nother video. So social, I want to talk about, like I mentioned a little bit. So positive social influences at home and within the community that you choose versus, you know, stuff that happens at recess can be questionable because they're not being supervised. Learning social skills from adults versus children alone. I find it quite ironic that people say they're lacking social skills, because really when you're learning social skills from people who know just as much as you with social skills, there's a lot of errors, there's a lot of problems with that, like peer pressure, for example, doing negative influence. And like when you look at the big picture and you become an adult, you're like, wow, why did that happen? Like, why did I do that? And that's negative socialization that homeschooling thankfully helps with. So another thing about the social aspect is eco-conscious values, consumerism, and holidays. So right now when you look at kids in school, like the average kid, they're excited about all of the holidays where they get gifts, and those gifts are like LOL dolls or these new like Hatchimals and stuff, and they're all like plastic and expensive and bad for the environment. They're giving no value to these kids aside from the fact that they're crying because, you know, the doll they just opened up they already have, and like it's just that whole like consumerism of like mainstream toys. I'm gonna do a toy video separate, but it just drives me absolutely bananas. It's sad, it's sick. It's a North American thing for sure. I know other countries definitely have this problem, but it's a huge driven like commercial problem here. And the holidays have lost their true meaning, and I feel like if my kids were in public school, they would be just like the average kid in, you know, buying into all of that. So as I'm like talking about all these points, it makes me seem like a very controlling mom, but I'm really not that controlling. I want my kids to be the best they can be and be the best for the community and the world. That I want them to have really strong values in, you know, all the things that I mentioned. So anywho, these next things are based on me and like the pros for me personally. So less stress and more time. So no drop off, no pickup in the morning. I don't have to pack meals and lunches and snacks. I don't have to deal with the restrictive scheduling. So when you're in school, you can't have extracurriculars during that time. So you're like literally rushing between the hours of like 3:30 to dinner time, and then it's like bath and bed. And like, when do you ever see your kids? You don't see them hardly ever Monday to Friday because, you know, there's so much going on. There's no sick days or reporting to anyone for exemptions or anything like that. Excuse me. I'm there for my kids 100% of the time. There's no need to stress over homework or grades or projects. I can save money, so there's no tuition fees, uniforms, field trip fees that we may not want. Obviously, there's a lot of costs with homeschooling that I'll go into, but doing field trips or like doing activities that I may not agree with, I would save money on those. No gas for pickup and drop off, like pizza day and all of those costs, they add up. So I'd be saving a lot of money that way. Less stress on baby routine, so I don't have to interrupt their naps to pick up kids and blah 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 and do all that because we're home, unless we like purposely schedule things. And I learned too, which I think is so much fun. Like experiencing and learning with my kids has been such a joy, and I am just loving it. So the last point I'm going to make is safety. So this may be applicable more to others than others because depending on where you live and kind of your community setup and all of that, it may be extremely safe and it may be not so safe. So there's no schoolmate threats for like bullying or like self-esteem issues in terms of like mental health safety. Supervision and a trusted person is with my kids at all times. There's no question as to what my kid is doing, like what is my kid doing right now, who are they with, that sort of thing. There's no inappropriate actions or abuse from students or adults because, again, I'm in control of everything. There's no weapons in my house, no school weapons, shootings, anything I have to worry about for that. No commuting in bad weather, so that's safety, because here in Canada we get a lot of snow, so I wouldn't have to be worrying about them getting on a bus or me driving them in bad weather. No buses. So I was actually in a mom group and they were talking about this mom was like crying about how her daughter, who's 4 years old, got off on the wrong bus stop. So when the bus got to her, her kid wasn't on the bus. And I just like lost it when I read that. But anywho, those are the reasons why we're homeschooling. I'm going to do a separate video on kind of how we're homeschooling, our scheduling, our routines, our different activities, the curriculum we're using for kindergarten, and all of that in the next video. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any questions about homeschooling, leave them down below. A lot of people are intimidated by it, but it's actually pretty amazing. So I will answer all your questions in the next video if you want to lay them down below. And yeah, thanks for watching. Much love. Bye.